Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Kelly's Creative Dream Studios. My name is Kelly, and I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in a very wet South Central Missouri this morning. It's a little bit before 6 a.m., and it is just pouring buckets of rain outside. Has been for several hours. I'm going to try and get this case on the 5th card up this morning. I don't know if I'm going to have internet to upload the video. So, at least in a timely manner. You may be seeing this later this evening, but we still have case on the 5th. Case on the 5th means we take a sample from a current catalog and we make it our own. And so I am looking at this one here, this thank you card, and I was inspired by the postage stamp punch. I bought it because it goes with a stamp that I have that is non-SU. But I thought this was perfect for that. They did a square card. Square cards cost us more to mail here in the U.S. than they do in the UK. But I took this and I did bands anyway. The only thing I stamped was the sentiment on the outside and the sentiment on the inside. So let's take a look at, I am using the In Color Designer Series papers, the 6x6, and this is the card we're going to make today. Now I'm also using a print from Teacup that has a lot of the same colors in it. I'm also going to be showing you the 2 ink stamping method and a tip that I received from a dear lady many years ago. And this is what we're going to do. And then we have thank you for inspiring me on the inside and a flower from Nature's Prince. So I brought in a couple of different things today. We're starting with an Orchid Oasis card base cut at 4 1/4 by 11, and we're going to fold it in half. I tucked my bone folder over here. Now remember, all the dimensions will be on my blog post. When I'm going to get that blog post done, since I don't have internet this morning, and get it uploaded, just check back if you want to know. But it's very simple. You have a basic card base that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. We have a piece of the Teacup Designer Series paper cut at 2 inches by 5 1/4, and a piece of the Designer Series In Color of the Orchid Oasis cut at 2 inches by 5 1/4. And we are just going to glue those to the front using our Tombow liquid glue. It was funny, over retreat last weekend, several of the girls call it the green glue because it has a green and white cap and bottle. So I'm starting at the bottom. We're using this in landscape, so it will flip up this way. And the first one I made, I did the card right, but I stamped the sentiment for the inside going the wrong direction. So, yeah. That was been my morning this morning. But it's all good. It's an easy fix. I can use that for another card somewhere else. I thought about doing this as a Z-fold this morning, and I thought I just really don't have time for that. Now, the other thing is you want to make sure if you're using a pattern paper that your patterns go in the right direction when you lay it down. And I did this to where I have just a little slim there. Now, if you wanted, you could add ribbon there. You could add another strip of Designer Series paper on there. I liked it just the way it was. Okay. Now we're going to set this aside. And I have a piece of basic white. Before I do that, let's do the inside because I'm going to need to swap this stamp out for the sentiment. So let's go ahead and stamp this one while we're at it. Then when I take it off the block, I don't have to put it back on. And I've got that on there crooked. Now here's another trick. Use your block and your paper, your grid paper, and you can get a perfect lineup of your stamps that way. Okay? Okay, now we're going to do this when we're stamping this in the Orchid Oasis ink. Up and down, up and down. And remember, I need to turn it landscape. And again, I can use my grid paper to see that I'm getting straight on here. If my paper's straight and my stamp is straight, everything else should come out in the wash. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and scrub that one off really quick. So it'll be ready to put away. My chamois looks disgusting, I know, but it doesn't interfere with your stamps at all. And these are really handy, particularly for the polymer, to just use the white. Now, if you want to use the reds, I do recommend using the Stampin' Scrub with the Stampin' Scrub cleaner, because that will condition your inks. Water will dry your rubbers out, whereas the Stampin' Scrub will condition them. Okay, now we're going to come back in with our You Are a Real Blessing to Everyone Around You, and we're going to plop that right down there. And this is where the two-step stamping comes in that I've talked about. I learned how to do this from Dee Gruenig years and years ago. I had the pleasure of meeting the sweet lady. And if you are familiar with the Carol Duvall show, you probably saw Dee in action. Sweet lady from Arizona. Okay, I'm going to turn this sideways. And what I'm going to do is I'm using the In Color Stampin' Right markers. I am going to use the Sweet Sorbet and the Orchid Oasis. And the first thing I'm going to do, these have two tips. They have a fine writing tip and then they have a brush tip. And we're going to go with the brush tip. I've slipped my cheaters on. And then I'm going to go right in here. Another thing is if you film videos. Now all I did was color in the word blessings in the Sweet Sorbet. Now, while I'm coloring this in, if you film videos, this grid paper is awesome. I've learned that this helps me find my mark. And if you'll notice, I'm staying in frame a whole lot more. And I'm using the brush, and I'm just brushing over top of the other words in the Orchid Oasis. This is also qualifying as the hashtag simple stamping. So if you want to get some other great ideas for just a simple stamp technique, do a hashtag search, simple stamping, on your social media. Now, the part that Dee taught me was when you're coloring different areas, it can, if you're concerned about some of your other inks drying up before you get done coloring, pretend you're mad at the world and go, and just huff on it, and just your breath will reactivate any of that ink. And then I'm going to stamp straight down and straight up. And isn't that pretty? I'm going to give that a second to dry. And while that's drying, I want to come in while I've still got my markers out. We're going to let that sit and dry for a second. It won't take long, but this is a good time for me to do this. I'm going to bring in my scrap of my paper and my markers again. And I'm also using Parakeet Party. And I am using the floral stamp set from the floral stamp from Nature Prints. That's it. And we're using this one right here. And I'm using the Parakeet Party to color in anything on this flower that would be green. So the base of this flower bud and the stem. And then I'm coming back in with the Orchid Oasis and color in the flower. Okay, just like that. Now this is what they call one of the definitive stampings. Remember I talked about those when we did the catalog walkthrough? Because it really outlines the detail inside the floral. I'm going to go this way to make sure I get the edges good. Okay. Again, the huff, because I've got the multiple colors on there. I want to make sure that nothing started to dry up so I get a good crisp stamp. Now, if I wanted to pull this out a little bit more, I could come in with one of our blender pens. New packages are always a treat to get open, and I've not had these out yet. But you can come in with a water brush, or you can come in with our blender pen. And you can pull that color out into your flower and get some other lighter colors out into the petal like that. And it will give you a watercolor effect without having to do anything else other than just stamp your image. Just like that. Okay, and that's what the blender pens are good for. And then just swipe them off to clean them off. Okay, this is probably dry, so let's go ahead And I'm using our postage stamp punch. And remember, supply list with all the link numbers will be on the blog just as soon as I have internet. I am leaving today for I'm speaking at a writer's meeting on Saturday. And I'm going in a couple of days early. I don't get into the city that often, so I can go in and do some other stuff. Now, I'm going to distress the edges of this a little bit so that it's not so stark white. And all I do is take my ink pad, and you could do this with the edge of your marker as well. In fact, let me pull out the Orchid Oasis marker and show you how simple this is. Just run your brush across the edge, just like that. I'm using the brush tip, just like that. Now I'm going to adhere this to the front with Stampin' Dimensionals. There. Now I have, while it's pouring rain outside, I have 2 other videos I'm working on this morning. The next one I'm going to do is the one for tomorrow morning, which is our Junk Journal Friday premiere. So I'm going to get that done next. And then I'm going to hopefully put together a scrapbook page. I may or may not have a picture on it, but I want to do a scrapbook page, but I've got to find a picture of Bob. And then I just set this off to the side, brought it in about 3/4 of an inch. Now if I wanted to add other stuff to this, I'm looking for, I was trying to do this without getting my arm in the way. I could come in and add some of our in-color matte dots. I could add butterflies. Don't need the black. Don't need our mattes. Definitely don't need red. I think what I'm going to use is our iridescent rhinestones. I really love these. They're so pretty and sparkly. Now one of these cards is going to a friend of mine. They just moved to a new house in Texas. And after being vagabonds for the past 6 or 8 months. And I have a package waiting to go to her as soon as she gives me a new shipping address. But I think I'm going to go and add down here in the corner. I'm going to add a dot to the 2. Just like that. I'm sticking mostly with the smaller ones, the mediums and the smalls. Let's stick one up there, scatter a couple of the singles around here, just to add a little bit of sparkle to Sarah's card. And I think I want to put another one down here in the blue. And there we go. We now have 2. And while I have it out, let's go ahead and bling this one up and it'll be done. I liked putting that one in the center of that O for the 2. I liked that a lot. We did mostly mediums around here. A couple of small ones. Medium one up here in this other corner. There we go. 2 cards. Hashtag simple stamping. And let's go ahead and put the inside of this one in here. Almost forgot it. The key things to remember are: pay attention to the direction of your card so that you stamp your inside in the right direction. And pay attention to your pattern direction. Those are my key tips for today. And there we go. 2 very simple cards for simple stamping and for Case on the 5th. Thanks for joining me in the studio today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And weather permitting, I'll see you back here tomorrow for a premiere. Creative blessings.